So hey everyone, and in this video we are going to learn about useRef hook. So what's exactly useRef hook? So obviously you would be using it for managing different references in DOM elements. That means suppose if you want to target an input element, suppose you have a button here or anything you want to target. In normal JavaScript, what you use is get element by ID or get element by tag and like that. Okay, so similarly we actually have useRef for targeting elements like that, and we have one more use case of useRef. So first of all, let's understand what's exactly useRef, but before that let me just give you a use case where you'd be using it, a situation. Let's create that. So first of all, I'll be creating a folder here, useRef ex, so that we have all the examples. So useRef example, and here I'm just going to say that we have a file, suppose useRef ex.js. I'm just going to write RAFCE. Suppose here we have a case where I want to just create a hook which would be storing some data, for example my data, and I'm just going to set it as empty. Okay, set it as empty. That would be better if you just write it like name and set name. That would be better. Okay, so I'm just going to create an input field which would be just storing my name. Okay, so I'm just going to say whatever is my name, I'm just going to set into this variable using useState, and I'm just going to say this would be the value which is stored inside this input, and your value would always be shown here. And what you would do is you would also just say, instead of this I actually want to show the count. Okay, so the number of times render occur. Okay, and I'm just going to say that initially I would just create a state, and I just want to say that whenever there is a change in my input, that is name state, I would always re-render. Okay, so I'll just create a variable named as count, set count, and I would just make the initial state as 0, or you can make it something else, and I would always show the count here. Okay, so right now if I just show you this, if I just go to app.js, and here guys, now instead of this I want to use my use ref example, so I would be using this. Now let's see what it exactly shows. If I go to terminal, and obviously I would be starting this first, so just type npm start, and here guys in the browser it would automatically start is not recognized as internal or external. Okay, I think npm start again. Okay, I think I need to first of all install. Okay, just a second. Okay guys, so there might be some cases when you download my code and your node modules folder is missing. What you can exactly do is first of all look for package.json. If it's there, then what you have to do is, that means your code is correct, but sometimes files might be missing, node modules folder might be missing. What you have to do is you have to simply type npm i. This would actually install all the packages. Now everything is fine. If I type npm start, now you would see that it would start properly. Okay, so I have actually re-downloaded the code, and just to show you what problems would you would face when you download my code. So now first of all, one issue is here, that is you need to import usestate. So just control and space, and you would get usestate, right? So you can see that yeah, 0 times re-render occurred. So you can see right now 0 times it occurred. Let me just fix this. So the re-render occurred 0 times, right? I'm just going to say that we have a use effect, and this would actually run automatically whenever the re-render occurs. Okay, so I'm just going to say that set count, and whatever was the previous value would be incremented by 1. That means 0 would now become 1, 1 would become 2, and so on. Okay, so if I just show you this, so you can see that it's running infinite time. That means use state is actually rendered infinite times. That means even if I'm not doing anything, it's re-rendering. Okay, so it's always a problem when you just normally used it, and when you just want to check renders, in those cases you always use useRef. Okay, so now instead of this, if I suppose use useRef, okay, what I can do is I would just say const render, and is this time I'm going to use useRef. Okay, so count equals use ref. Okay, use ref, and it would be starting from 0. And what I would do is I have to just simply say, like, use ref actually returns an object. It would return an object. It would return an object out of which we have one field named as current. Okay, so one field named as current, which would be storing value 0, because you have named a value as 0. So if I'm talking about this variable, it actually contains now this value. Okay, so I'm just going to say it has other values also, you can print that. So here I'm just going to say render count. Whenever there is a change, whenever there is a render, I would just say increment the value by 1. Now this time I'm just incrementing the values. Okay, now here guys, in this case I'm just going to print this. Okay, render count dot current. Okay, now I'm just going to show the value. Okay, so now let's see. So suppose now if I make a change, so you can see that that's how it exactly works. Okay, so now this would render in those cases whenever there is a change in those values, not in the exact page. Okay, so it would be really beneficial if I just reload the page, so you can see it again became 0. Suppose if I press this and if I press a letter, so you can see, yes, that's how it exactly works. So you can see that when you don't want to re-render infinite times, you can actually use the useRef. In those cases you actually use the useRef. That's what it's used for. And the other case is like you used useRef for storing value, just like usestate. So it's totally up to you when you like, it won't be a very big problem if you use usestate. I always use that. But in some cases you just want to see the renders. Okay, you don't want unnecessary renders, so in that cases you actually use useRef. Okay, but yeah, you would be totally skipping this, because personally I haven't used it that much for these kind of cases to store values. For storing values you might always use useState. Okay, but yeah, just one example, what's the purpose of useRef here for storing values. Now the other example is actually a better example, the better purpose of useRef. What you can exactly do is you can actually target fields using this. Okay, so if I give you example, let me just comment this out, just commenting this out, and again I'm going to write RAFCE. So I'm just rewriting things here. And now guys, this type I'm just going to create a reference. Okay, so I'll just say const input reference. Okay, so I'm just going to again type use ref. Okay, it's going to write use ref, and initially suppose the value is null. That means right now I'm not targeting anything, I'm just saying that use ref is nothing. That means I've created a variable which is containing nothing. Okay, null value. Okay, that means current value is null. Okay, current value of use ref is null, right? So I'm just going to say that to whom I want to target. Okay, so for that what I can say is I would just say, suppose I want to target an input element, so I would just type input, and then here you can simply type ref parameter. Okay, so this is actually a parameter which you have provided, and here you can simply say input ref, and suppose your type is text. Okay, suppose your type is text. So right now you can see I haven't given anything. You can't type on change value anything, you haven't written anything, you just targeted that input. Now I can easily get the values of this input, I can make manipulation in this input. There is another way. Okay, previously what did we do was we actually use on change and set value like this. Okay, you can either follow this or you can easily set value into the input ref using the same approach, very easy approach. Okay, so this is also a good approach, but although in most cases you'll be using this because it's always recommended. Okay, but still you must know this approach. That's how you can target elements. So now I've targeted it. Now let's try to make some manipulation. For example, if I have a button, and let me just say we have a function. Okay, for example, I would just say const handle click. Okay, handle click, and I'm just going to get the current value. Okay, so I'll just get the current value. So let me just say click me, and I would just say on click I would just call handle click function. Okay, so now let's try to use this. Suppose if we have the button, and now if I just say we have written something. Okay, let me just zoom in, and if I just inspect console, and right now if I just click this, so you can see that you can easily get the current value. Okay, so it's very useful to just store the values like this, so you can easily store, like, right? So it's very easy to use useRef, or you can use on change and then you can create a state. Both ways are great, but mostly I would recommend that you can go for use state, that would be better. Okay, so right now you can see this is the first use. That means you can easily get or store the values of any variable by simply writing inputRef.current. Inside this you can use anything. For example, if you want to get the color, if you want to set the color, any property you want. For example, I want to change background. I want to change the background color, so I would simply say change the background color of the input field. Okay, so I would simply say use ref input ref dot current dot style dot background color. So this is the normal familiar property which we have learned on JavaScript. You have learned about DOM, right? So normal JavaScript we have DOM. What did we do is we target the element by get element by ID. Then we simply use properties like style dot background color or color, or you can just target the value like that. So you can easily see that once I just click on this, for example, I click on this, so you can see the background color changed to red. Okay, it's a very easy use case. Now, one more example is suppose I want to focus on this. For example, I want to focus on this. What I can actually do is, for example, if my suppose page reloads, okay, suppose my page reloads, and if I click on this, now it's focused. Okay, now it's focused. But let me just reload. I want it to be focused whenever my page loads. Okay, whenever my page loads. So what I can do is I can simply say use effect. Okay, and I would just say that whenever this just loads for the first time, you can see this only for one time, not infinite times. I just want to focus on that, so I would just say you input current focus. Okay, so here I'm just saying inputRef.current.focus. Okay, so now let's see how it exactly looks. So if I just reload, you can see that it focused by default. Okay, it's focused by default. That's the benefit. Okay, that's the benefit. You can also set some value. You can just say inputRef.current dot value, and you can just set some value, like I've just set my name Harshal Jain. So now let's see. So you can see that by default some value is here. Okay, so that's totally up to you, but yeah, you can definitely change this. And now suppose if I write anything, and if I just inspect console, and you can just click here, you can see that I easily got the value. Okay, so that's totally up to you. You can use useRef like this is the best use case. You would be using it for mostly targeting values and getting values and making focus on input field. Whenever we use forms in React.js, you would be always using useRef for focusing any part of the form or getting the values or manipulating the value. This is also a good method for getting the values. You can see for getting the value, this is also a good method, but this is also a good method if you use it normally. But yeah, if you want to manipulate the styles, always you would be using useRef. Okay, if you want to manipulate style, for example, I manipulated this style or I manipulated the value, for those cases you would be always using the useRef. That's the best way and easiest way you can always use. Okay guys, so I hope you understood the basic overview of useRef. Later on you would be using this a lot, and this is just a very basic example of useRef. So I hope you understood this video. I'll be uploading the source code in my GitHub repository, so you can watch it from there. I will see you in the next one. Till then, say